Hello, welcome to the Self Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Chapter 6, The Challenges of Cultural Diversity. And our topic is communalism, secularism, and the nation state. The first one is communalism. In everyday language, the word communalism refers to aggressive communalism based on religious identity. Shamanism itself is an attitude that sees one's own group as the only legitimate or worthy group, with other groups being seen by definition as inferior, illegitimate, and opposite. Thus, to simplify further, the communalism is an aggressive political ideology linked to religion. This is a peculiarly Indian or perhaps South Asian meaning that is different from the sense of the ordinary English word. In the English language, communal means something related to a community or collectivity as different from an individual. The English meaning of is neutral, whereas the South Asian meaning is strongly charged. The charge may be seen as positive if one is sympathetic to communalism, or negative if one is opposite to it. It is important to emphasize that the communalism is about politics, not about religion. Although communalists are intensely involved with the religion, there is in fact no necessary relationship between personal faith and communalism. A communalist may or may not be a devout person, and devout believers may or may not be a communist. However, all communalists do believe in a political identity based on religion. The key factor is the attitude towards those who believe in other kinds of identities, including other religion based identities. Communalists cultivate an aggressive political identity and are prepared to condemn or attack everyone who does not share their identity. One of the characteristic features of communalism is its claim that religious identity overrides everything else, whether one is poor or rich, whatever one's occupation, caste, or political beliefs. It is religion alone that counts. All Hindus are the same, as are all Muslims, Sikhs, and so on. This has the effect of constructing large and diverse groups as singular and homogeneous. It is noteworthy that this is done for one's own group as well as for others. This would obviously rule out the possibility that the Hindus, Muslims, and Christians who belong to Kerala, for example, may have as much or more in common with each other than with their co-religionists from Kashmir, Gujarat, or Nagaland. It also denies the possibility that, for instance, landless agricultural laborers or industrialists may have a lot in common even if they belong to different religious and reasons. Communalism is an especially important issue in India because it has been a recurrent source of tension and violence. During communal rights, people become faceless members of their respective communities. They are willing to kill, rape, and loot members of other communities in order to redeem their pride, to protect their home turf. A commonly cited justification is to avenge the deaths or dishonor suffered by their co religionists elsewhere or even in the distant past. No region has been wholly exempt from the communal violence of one kind or the another. Every religious community has faced this violence in greater or lesser degree, although the proportionate impact is far more dramatic for minority communities. To the extent that the government can be held responsible for communal rights, no government or ruling party can claim to be blameless in this regard. In fact, the two most traumatic contemporary instances of communal violence occurred under each of the major political parties. The anti-Sikh riots of Delhi in 1984 took place under a Congress regime. The unprecedented scale and spread of anti-Muslim violence in Gujarat in 2002 took place under a BJP government. India has had a history of communal riots from pre-independence time, often as a result of the divide and rule policy adopted by the colonial rulers. But colonialism did not invent inter-community conflicts. There is also a long history of pre-colonial conflicts, and it certainly cannot be blamed for post-independence riots and killings. Indeed, if we wish to look for instances of the religious, cultural, regional, or ethnic conflict, they can be found in almost every phase of our history. But we should not forget that we also have a long tradition of religious pluralism, ranging from peaceful coexistence to actual intermixing or syncretism. This syncretic heritage is clearly evident in the devotional songs and poetry of the Bhakti and Sufi movements. In short, history provided us with both good and bad examples. What we wish to learn from it is up to us. Now, let us wind up the session and thank you very much for engaging yourself with a self learning podcast.